I lost my husband to illness 5 years ago and remarried Watson. Watson was kind while we were dating, but after we got married, he became cold towards my daughter Jean. One day, when I returned from work, I found Jean, who was 9 months pregnant, collapsed in the snow. Jean passed away like that. Devastated, I wanted to know why Jean was outside, so I checked her mobile phone. I found a recording on the app of Watson ordering her to shovel snow. After a while, Watson came out and locked the front door. "Are you locking the front door? I didn't bring my house key." "Your house key is confiscated. I'm going out to a drinking party." "What?" "You can't even make a decent meal, so shovel snow until I return." "That's terrible." The recording ended there. I stopped the app, sniffled, and wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. I can't forgive that man. He treated my precious daughter terribly and sent her to her death. Just you wait. I'll make sure to humiliate you in front of a crowd, leaving you with no chance of recovery. I'm Maggie, a 45-year-old housewife. I lost my husband to illness 5 years ago and have been living with Jean since then. 3 years ago, I remarried Watson, an elite employee from a trading company who was assigned to my office. He was surprisingly single, charming, and bright. But once we started living together, his true nature was entirely different. I should have noticed it during our dating. At least, I should have divorced him as soon as I realized his true nature. I ended up regretting it bitterly. Jean, abandoned by her partner after becoming pregnant, returned to her parents' house as she was 9 months along. It was safe for her delivery since there was a big hospital nearby, and I was worried about letting Jean, who has a weak heart, stay alone. Having lost my parents in my teens, I wanted to do everything I could for my daughter. Jean started living alone after high school graduation, but whenever she returned home, Watson acted strangely indifferent to her. I thought Watson would be better, but he was even worse to Jean, hurling abuse and glaring at her. "Your gloomy face is so unsettling. Go away. You're getting fatter by the day. That's not a baby in there, just a lump of fat. Lucky you. Getting to take a break from work as a pregnant woman. Remember, you're eating on my dime. Be grateful." "Watson, don't say that. Jean is in her final month. It's dangerous for her to exert herself." Of course, I'd step in whenever I saw this, but the problem was when I wasn't home. On weekdays, when Watson took a day off and was at home, Jean would stay in her old room, but she had to go to the kitchen to prepare lunch because he demanded it. During that time, Watson stood behind Jean, who was cooking, and persistently harassed her. "You're so slow at cooking. You were never good at your job, were you? Chop the vegetables more finely. The noodles are too hard. Are you trying to annoy me? Remake the pasta." Every time Jean told me about this after I got home, it broke my heart. Watson, a manager, was busy with work, often doing overtime and working on weekends, and he said he was stressed. It seemed he was taking out his frustration from work on Jean, who was in a vulnerable position. I even thought about sending Jean back to her apartment, but I was worried about the remarks Watson might make after she gave birth. This morning, Watson got up late and started insulting Jean at breakfast. "You look so plain today. Even your mother looks better. No wonder guys run away from you." "Watson, stop it. Think about Jean's feelings." When I intervened, Watson glared at me and started yelling, "What, you're going against me? You live on my money, so don't complain." Currently, I'm paying off my late husband's debts with my part-time job salary. So, we rely on Watson's earnings for our living expenses. Knowing this, Jean doesn't argue back and just ignores his insults. I really hate that man. After Watson left, Jean muttered this in anger, and I hugged her. "Just a little more patience. You'll be hospitalized next week, right? I'm working hard to pay off the debt and save money. We'll leave this house in 6 months. He's admired at his company, right? I can't believe it. When he participated in the company's barbecue, he was chatting happily with his bosses and colleagues. He even talks cheerfully with neighbors while taking out the trash. He's someone who cares about his public image. Wow, like a totally different person. Creepy." I agree with Jean's disgusted expression. Since he has such a good reputation in public, even when I complain to friends, they don't take me seriously. Since Jean isn't blood related, it can't be helped. Maybe it's because he's a male parent. He doesn't know how to interact with a young girl? It seems impossible for others to imagine Watson hurling abuse. One day, Jean came back from the gynecologist, excitedly reporting to me, "Mom, that man is cheating!" What? I was shocked to see the photo Jean took on her mobile phone. It was Watson, looking infatuated, arm in arm with a woman, entering a hotel. "Mom, let's gather more evidence and confront him, then get a divorce." Yes, if we get a good settlement in the divorce, we can pay off Dad's debts. I swallowed hard. Indeed, if Watson was cheating, I could get a substantial settlement in the divorce. I began to gather evidence of his infidelity. I entered his mobile phone's password while he slept, sent messages and photos with his mistress to my phone, and confirmed through the car's GPS that he searched for multiple hotels. Next, I thought about planting a voice recorder in Watson's everyday bag. I sneaked into his study and was searching for bar and hotel membership cards when he returned home early from work. Despite saying he'd work late, Watson came home at the regular time. Startled by his heavy footsteps coming up the stairs, I hurried out of the study and turned pale upon meeting Watson. "What are you sneaking around in my room for?" "Oh, nothing." Watson snatched the bar membership card from my trembling hands and sneered. "Planning to gather evidence of infidelity to make me pay settlement during the divorce, huh? I won't divorce you. You're a free housekeeper." "Please, let's get divorced." "No way," Watson declared to my pleading self. "In public, we're seen as a loving couple. I'm the kind husband who supported his wife after her husband's death, and I've covered all the debts." Watson laughed at me scornfully. "If you want a divorce, out-earn me. Graduate from a top university, and climb to a department head in a major corporation like me. Arguing with me while you're just a part-timer? That's 100 years too early." Unable to retort, I went downstairs dejectedly, where Jean sat upright in front of my mobile phone. "Sorry, Mom, everything's been deleted." Watson apparently got the password from Jean and deleted all the evidence of his infidelity. I bit my lip as Watson hummed a tune and went to take a shower. For several days, the freezing cold continued, and when I opened the curtains in the morning, a snowy landscape spread below. Light snowflakes danced down from the cloudy sky. It was rare in this area, but it looked like the snow would accumulate during the day. "Mom, the roads might be icy, so be careful when you walk." "Yes, I'll wear boots today. It rarely snows here, so it's nerve-wracking. I might fall while admiring the snow." While having breakfast, I exchanged casual conversation with Jean and hurriedly prepared for work. "Have a good day! Be careful!" "I will. It's dangerous to go outside today because you might slip." "I know." Jean, who came to see me off at the front door, smiled brightly when I reminded her. Watson, who seemed still asleep and didn't show his face, was off today. I shoveled through the snow piled under the gate, opened it, and walked more cautiously than usual on the sidewalk where snow remained at the edges. By evening, when I returned home from work, the snow had stopped. The melting snow gathered slushily at the edges of the road, and smaller patches of snow remained in the shade compared to the morning. I remembered how Jean used to get excited about the snow as a child, making small snowmen. Smiling at the memory, I walked home and saw a light blue object behind the front door. As I got closer, I realized it was Jean's dress, and my eyes widened. I ran over, lifted Jean up, and patted her pale cheeks, calling her name, but there was no response. In a frenzy, I called an ambulance and accompanied her to the hospital. In the ambulance, I watched breathlessly as emergency measures were administered to Jean, and eventually arrived at the hospital, watching as she was taken on a stretcher to the emergency center, feeling a tightness in my chest. Sitting on a chair in the dimly lit corridor, I wondered how long I had waited. The door opened and a doctor with a grave expression appeared. "She has just passed away. We did everything we could." My world went blank. It can't be. This can't be real. After a while, 2 detectives appeared. "Sorry to bother you at a time like this, but it's our job. May we ask you a few questions?" "Yes." In my dazed state, they asked me several questions. "Was your daughter shoveling snow, even with her pregnancy?" "Yes, I think my husband must have ordered her to. He was always cold to his stepchild, Jean. He probably told her not to come inside the house. If that's the case, it could be considered a case of violence. We'll investigate further. Please do. After the detectives left and I came to my senses, I realized I was holding something in my right hand. It was Jean's mobile phone. It must have fallen from her pocket when she was loaded into the ambulance, and I picked it up, unconsciously. It was unresponsive when I touched the power button, so I decided to charge it when I got home. After entering the passcode, I found the recording app left open. Hoping to find any interaction with Watson, I played it, and Watson's angry voice filled the quiet room. "This pasta! The sauce is too thin to eat!" "I'm sorry. I made it thinner because you said it was too thick last time." "Don't make excuses. I'm the one taking care of you because you can't work. I'm the family leader. Show more respect." "Yes." "As punishment, go shovel snow in front of the entrance." After a while, I heard Jean go outside. The sound of her opening the storage and moving the shovel to clear the snow reached me. Watson really made her shovel snow. What was he thinking, making his pregnant daughter do that? Unbelievable. Anger heated my body. Then, Watson's rough footsteps and the sound of him locking the front door were heard. "Are you closing the front door? I don't have the house keys with me." There was another sound. Perhaps the jingle of the keys? "I'm confiscating the house keys. I'm going to a drinking party." "What?" "A person who can't even make a decent meal should keep shoveling snow till I return." "That's cruel." The recording ended there. There were several other recordings, all of them Watson's verbal abuse towards Jean. He was somewhat restrained around me, but when I wasn't there, he was even worse to Jean. I stopped the recording app, sniffling and wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. That man, unforgivable. He treated my precious daughter horribly and sent her to the next world. Just wait and see. I'll make him suffer a huge embarrassment in front of everyone and render him incapable of recovery. Jean's body, showing no external injuries, was quickly returned to me after the autopsy concluded there was no foul play. I contacted the funeral home we used for my husband and scheduled the funeral for the earliest date. Tomorrow is the funeral. I only informed Watson's and my relatives. I told the gathered relatives that Watson was too busy to be contacted. Even as I looked at Jean's pale, still face in the coffin, it didn't feel real. Her beautiful face looked like she was sleeping, as if she might wake up any moment. I talked to Jean about the names we had considered for the baby and the brand of stroller we planned to buy. But the next day, hearing the sobs of the relatives and the pastor's Bible reading, the reality that Jean was gone hit me. I would never hear Jean's bright voice or see her gentle smile again. Thinking this, tears flowed uncontrollably. If only I had divorced sooner, this wouldn't have happened. Under the cold sky, forced to do physical labor with her pregnant belly, she must have suffered so much. "I'm sorry, Jean. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you." The female relatives hugged and cried with me, overwhelmed by grief. Eventually, the cremation took place, and the funeral ended. As I was about to return home in the car, Watson called Jean's mobile phone. Answering the phone, I heard loud music and young women's voices on the other end. Despite the early hour, Watson, slurring his words, asked, "Is it over yet?" "My daughter's funeral just ended." "Huh?" Watson, hearing me, said, "It's Maggie, right? Talking about the snow shoveling. You must have let Jean into the house when you got back from work." Unaware of the situation, Watson spoke casually. "Was Jean regretting making me a bad meal?" "Leaving a pregnant woman out in the cold for such a trivial reason is unthinkable." I wanted to scream at him, forgetting I was outside. "Gotta discipline the daughter properly. Huh? Why does Maggie have Jean's mobile phone? Is she bedridden with a cold? Can't even manage herself?" "I told you, the funeral just ended." "You always lack a sense of humor. Why don't you learn from me?" He sought agreement from someone else, and the young girls laughed over the phone. I said in a cold voice, "Right. Can you tell me something then?" "Huh. I'm coming over there now." "Wait. Hey!" I remembered the bar's name written on the card I found in the study. He must be there. I hung up and drove towards the downtown area. When I opened the heavy door with a gold letter sign in a corner of the brightly lit neon city, the staff all opened their eyes in surprise. That's true. If a middle-aged woman in morning clothes comes into a store, it's bound to surprise anyone. Watson's here, isn't he? Oh, well... Ah, there he is! I stepped into the bar and headed straight for Watson, surrounded by girls in revealing dresses, with a lecherous smile on his face. Watson's face twisted in shock when he saw me. Why are you here? And in that outfit, are you trying to harass me? I thought I should report to my family. I placed the death certificate on the table, and Watson, who looked at it puzzled, suddenly turned pale. Jean passed away yesterday afternoon. The flashy woman from the photo Jean took, even after my arrival, kept her arm entwined with Watson's. She frowned at the death certificate. Jean, that's your stepchild, right? Yeah. Then you should head back right away. You need to say goodbye to Jean. Thank you for your concern. But the funeral and cremation finished while this man was out drinking since last night. Watson's face twisted. Why didn't you call me? A father's absence at the funeral is disgraceful. Why? You have no reason to be there. You're not family. The girls around started to sense the tension. Lana looked at Watson and said quietly, Watson, you don't seem sad at all that your daughter died. She's my stepchild, not my daughter. But still, she was family. I alternated my gaze between Lana, who seemed to want to say more, and Watson, who looked sulky. Watson's mistress, Lana, was making far more sensible comments than him. You're Watson's mistress, Lana, right? Lana's eyes widened, and she shook Watson's shoulder. Hey, you said your wife was so clueless she'd never find out, but she knows. Keep it down. Yes, I'm Lana. So what? You're divorcing and want a settlement from the divorce court? There's that. But first, a warning. I smiled at Lana. Watson doesn't value what he obtains. He's sweet only while chasing someone, but once he has them, he quickly changes his attitude. Maybe soon, Lana, you'll be the one suffering. Hey, don't bring up ominous things while we're having fun. I retorted fiercely to Watson's snappy comment. How can you have fun drinking when you've lost a daughter? Isn't that strange? That was an unfortunate accident. Besides, your daughter is a stranger to me. I feel sorry, but it's none of my business. Oh, so you insist it was an accident. Frustrated, I played Jean's mobile phone's recording app at full volume. Watson's command to Jean to shovel snow echoed, causing a stir among the strippers present. Jean had a heart condition, as I just mentioned the other day. She had been visiting the doctor since early in her pregnancy, and was scheduled to be hospitalized next week to prepare for a premature birth. We decided on a major hospital nearby so they could handle any complications during delivery. Knowing she had a heart condition, leaving her out in sub-zero temperatures for a half a day is life-threatening. Well, yeah, I guess. Watson looked troubled and scratched his head, and I felt indignant. I had told him countless times about Jean's congenital heart disease, but it seemed to have slipped his mind. There's more! I played all of Watson's verbal abuses, causing the strippers to stand up from the sofa and hastily move to another table. Hey, don't make a scene. It's disturbing the peace of the bar. It's fine. I've rented the place out. By the way, I called the insurance company and found out you increased Jean's death benefit from $300,000 to $1 million. And you changed the beneficiary from me to yourself without my permission. Watson became fidgety and replied in a fluster. Ugh, that's because it's safer for the head of the household, me, to receive the insurance money in case something happens. You've made a foolish mistake. You could be arrested for forgery. No way! I told Watson with a hint of kindness in my voice. By the way, the police are looking for Jean's father, meaning you, to ask about the situation. It's only a matter of time before they find out you're here. Huh? She just happened to pass away. Bad luck. Lana quietly removed her arm from Watson as I stared at his profile. Lana? Where are you going? I thought you were a bit self-centered, but this is too much. I can't follow you. What? Don't call me again. If you do, I'll report you for harassment. After Lana's clear statement, she also left. Watson, left alone by the strippers, sighed, put his hand to his forehead, and said in exasperation, "Give me a break, Maggie. Just because you're jealous of a guy as popular as me, this is no way to act." Jealous? Any affection I had for you has long since cooled off. I shouted at the top of my lungs. You took my precious daughter from me. Don't you feel even a little bit of remorse? So what? That was just an accident. She should have disobeyed me and called you. Her phone was out of charge. And how can you make excuses after treating a pregnant woman so horribly? Stop bringing up the past. You've ruined my long weekend, you terrible woman. The real terrible person is you. Watson turned pale as he looked around. Unbeknownst to him, his father, Freddie, mother, Jaden, relatives, and even his boss and subordinates had gathered. Why is everyone here? I called them. I asked them to console a husband who was devastated by the death of his daughter. We've heard everything since you started talking. All the verbal abuse towards your daughter, too. The boss spoke with a stern face. I had faith in Watson for his performance and popularity among his subordinates, but at home, he's a complete tyrant. I'm disappointed. No, it's not like that. You don't need to come to the office from tomorrow. We have plenty of replacements for you. But Watson looked like he was about to cry as the relatives gave him cold stares. I thought Watson missed the funeral because of work, but he was just playing around here. Shows no remorse even though he caused this. Do you lack any human decency? I was proud of my nephew, a top university graduate working in a major company, but I'm so disappointed. The parents-in-law cried bitterly beside the angry relatives. Maggie, I don't know how to apologize. I'm so sorry for raising a son like this. You're responsible for Jean's death. Give her back. I didn't know about her heart condition. It was just a small joke. Everyone, please, listen to me. As Watson frantically made excuses amidst the crying relatives and parents-in-law, 2 men in suits appeared. Watson, you're suspected of murder for insurance money. We need you to come to the police station. What? No, it's a misunderstanding. I changed the beneficiary because I was annoyed that Maggie was the recipient. But her death really was an accident. Maggie, say something. I don't know anything about it. We'll discuss this in detail at the station. Flanked by burly detectives, Watson was escorted away, almost carried by them on the either side. Watson was charged with manslaughter, but received a suspended sentence as it was his first offense, and he lacked consideration and knowledge for a pregnant woman. However, he was immediately fired from his job at the major corporation. Having spent all his savings on bar visits, he was devastated when sued for $500,000, combining alimony, emotional distress, compensation for his verbal abuse towards me and Jean. Aiming to find reemployment as a regular employee, but being 50 years old, he couldn't get hired anywhere. He ended up desperately working part-time jobs in physical labor, like construction sites, juggling 3 of them at once. After I presented Watson with the divorce papers and kicked him out of the house, he moved into an old apartment. Due to being disowned by relatives and parents after this incident, he became a shadow of his former confident self, withered away from mental stress. Freed from the days of mediating between Jean and Watson and dealing with Watson's verbal abuse, I felt relieved after the divorce. With the compensation from the divorce court, I paid off the debts left by my late husband and started receiving installments of the divorce settlement from Watson. It might take a while to recover from the shock of losing Jean, but there was some good news. Jean's baby, miraculously saved through a cesarean section, was discharged from the hospital. Despite being underweight, the baby was healthy and quickly left the intensive care unit. Now, the baby is growing well under my care. Eventually, I'll have to tell the child about their mother's passing. It will be painful, but together with Watson's parents-in-law, I plan to provide all the support Jean's child needs.